Deepest, Darkest Secret, Chapter 5. Walking out of the bedroom, Troy sees Luke helping Grandmère in the kitchen, setting the table. He can tell his grandmother made Luke take a bath. Luke's hair is still wet, slicked down to the right side of his face and out of his eyes. Unfortunately, she didn't have any clothes that would fit him, so now he's wearing a sweatshirt that's about 5 sizes too big, and the same gray sweatpants Troy found him in. Luke is doing well. He is alert and responding, at least physically, if still not vocally. After dinner, Luke and Troy hang out at the cabin for a while. They sit mostly in silence as Luke watches TV and Troy picks up the book he was reading before he moved out. He has to go back and scan the first few chapters to remember the characters. Troy hated reading when he was in school. He found the stories boring and didn't want to dissect the author's purpose or the imagery. In his opinion, every author either wrote to entertain or to educate. That was it. Grandmère had made a lemon meringue pie for dessert, one of Troy's favorites. He and Luke together eat more than half of the pie before it's time to go. Troy kisses his grandmother on the cheek and murmurs, "Au revoir, Grandmère." She gives him a big hug, looks into his eyes, pats his shoulders, and nods her head, smiling. He isn't sure what that was all about, but he is sure he'll get the answer once Cindy calls for her weekly chat with Grandmère. Next, she moves on to Luke. Crouching down on his level, she smiles at him and blows him a kiss. In return, Luke leans forward and hugs her tightly. Troy smiles. Did Luke get attention and affection at home? Did he have a grandmother or a grandfather that spent time with him? Troy's grandparents were a big part of his life when he was young. He didn't want to think about what life might have been like if they weren't. Troy swings by his apartment for a fresh uniform and a shower before heading back to the police station. It's going to be another day for long sleeves, which he hates. He always feels so constricted in them. Thankfully, Louisiana only has a couple months out of the year when they're necessary. Knowing he isn't going to be able to just sit with Luke all night, Troy is beginning to get concerned about what Luke will do while he's out on his beat. He needs to talk to the captain before he goes out. Luke walks around the living room. On a bookshelf, he sees some framed photos. One of them is a black and white portrait of a couple with 5 children surrounding them. The lady in that picture looks a little like the one from the cabin. There's also one of Troy with a dog. Luke looks around but doesn't see anything that would tell him the dog is here. The last one is another family photo. He can tell the man in the picture is Troy, but younger. Bored with snooping, he moves to the sofa and quietly watches the television while he waits. Troy has a lot more channels to watch than his grandmother, so Luke finds a superhero show and settles in. Once they arrive at the station, Troy checks in with the captain. "No phone calls last night," Captain Hickman tells Troy. They are no closer to finding his parents than they had been last night. Troy knew that's what he was going to say. If someone had reached out, the captain would have called Troy to let him know, or to get him to bring Luke back. Don't people watch the news anymore? How do parents not know he's missing? Troy asks. He's not expecting an answer. These days, most people have their attention focused on their phones. It's where they get most of their information, be it true or not. 15 minutes later, Troy has Luke set up on the same makeshift bed in the community room. Before he leaves, Troy says a prayer over Luke, asking God to watch over him and to bring someone to care for him. Luke is fast asleep before Troy hides out to patrol the streets. Troy's shift is uneventful. The roads are still icy, and for the most part, people are staying home. He runs off a few kids on bicycles trying to do wheelies on the slippery ramps of the hospital parking garage. He tickets some fool doing donuts in the middle of an intersection. His mind really isn't into it tonight. He keeps thinking about Luke and what's going to happen to him. Back at the station after his shift is over, Troy sits watching Luke sleep. Shockingly, the call has been made to reopen the parish government offices. Schools are still closed, and businesses are being told they can open if they feel it would be safe for their employees to get back to work. As a result, most places are open. Prelo has a lot of small, locally owned businesses, and they can't afford to lose 2 days' worth of revenue. Some of them are adjusting their hours for staff that don't feel comfortable driving yet. Since Troy is off the next day, he decides to wait with Luke until DCFS can be contacted and can send someone to the station. Luke is still asleep at 8 o'clock when the office opens. Troy makes the call personally, explaining the situation to the woman who answers the phone. She says she'll send a caseworker out as soon as one of them shows up to work. Luke wakes up about an hour later. Troy is prepared this time to feed him. He had stopped by a fast food restaurant at the end of his shift and purchased 2 bacon biscuits and some hash browns. They're cool now, but nothing a microwave can't fix. Some time later, a short, attractive young woman walks into the community meeting room wearing a gray business suit with a knee-length skirt. She has her long black hair pulled up in a ponytail that trails down her back. Her makeup is done, but in a way that makes it appear like she isn't wearing any. Her high heels click on the tile floor as she makes her way over to Troy and Luke. Troy can't help but stare and wonder how this beauty wound up in the social work profession. She looks to be the epitome of professionalism. His mind takes him back to the memory of the dream he had. Black hair. The woman in the dream had black hair. Troy stands to greet her and extends his hand. "Officer Troy Hebert," he says, introducing himself. "Sophia Jenkins, DCFS. I'll be the young man's caseworker," she replies as she shakes his hand. "This is Luke. Well, he might not really be Luke. I haven't had any luck getting him to talk to me, so I went ahead and just gave him a name so I could sort of address him properly. I got tired of calling him kid." "Hi, Luke. I'm Miss Jenkins, your caseworker," Sophia says, as she reaches out her hand to the child. He hides behind Troy. "Hey there. It's all right. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm here to help. Can you tell me your real name?" Luke peeks out from behind Troy but remains silent. Good. If the kid spoke to this stranger, it'd feel like betrayal. Troy found him, after all. He'd been taking care of him, feeding him, everything. That counts for something, right? Sophia takes a notepad out of her briefcase. "It's all right if you can't talk to us. I get shy around new people, too." She hands over the notepad and a pen. "Can you write your name for me?" Mentally, Troy smacks his forehead. Why didn't he think of that? The kid is surely school age. He should be able to communicate that way. But Luke hadn't offered either. Slowly, Luke shakes his head no. "Well," Sophia sighs, "this is going to be a challenge." She sits down at a table and pulls out some paperwork that needs to be completed. Troy sits down and motions Luke to do the same. "What about sign language? Do you sign, Luke?" Luke shakes his head. He doesn't even know what that means. "I'll need as much information as you can give me, Officer Hebert. I'll put his first name down as Luke and leave his last name as unknown. Do you know how old he is?" Troy shakes his head. "I've been trying to get information out of him ever since I found him. How am I supposed to do that when he won't talk?" Troy chuckles, hoping she realizes he's teasing. "Before yesterday, he wouldn't even focus on anything, just stared out into space. I think my grandmother helped him pull out of that shell." Why did I tell her that? Sophia looks at Luke. "Can you tell me how old you are?" Luke sticks out his hands, shaking, and holds up 7 fingers. She looks accusingly at Troy as if to say, "Why didn't you think of that?" Troy's eyebrows rise in a bit of surprise. Silently, he berates himself for not asking Luke questions that he could answer with numbers. But really, how many more questions have a number in it that he could answer? "Great. Now, what is your birthday?" Her question is met with a tilt of his head. "No? That's okay." She glances down the rest of the form. Now directing her comments to Troy, she says, "I don't think there's much more I can fill out about him. We don't know his parents' names. Even if I can get a house number out of him, we won't be able to get the street name. I can fill in the obvious, height, weight, gender, ethnicity. We should be able to get the information when the schools are open. They'll be able to fill in more of the blanks." She reaches the part of the form where she's meant to describe why DCFS is being brought into the picture. She has Troy give her all the details from the night he found him. Occasionally, she stops to ask him a question. She's writing as quickly as she can, notating everything Troy's telling her. When he talks about the scars on Luke's arms, she puts her pen down for a second and closes her eyes. After a minute, she picks it back up and continues her writing. "Okay, well, I think that's all I can do for now." She looks at Luke. "Can I take a look at your arms, please?" Luke puts his arms out, and Sophia holds one, then the other, turning them over. In all, she counts about 30 small circular scars. They all seem to be in about the same state of healing, so they likely happened at the same time. "Are you sure you can't just tell me your name, darling?" I don't know if he can't talk or won't talk, but I don't think we're getting that out of him today. So, what happens to him now? Troy asks. Now, I take him back to my office. He'll stay there until either his parents can be found or he's put into foster care. Your office? How long will it take to find him a foster home? Do you wait a certain amount of time to see if his parents will turn up before you try to find him a foster home? Or do you start that process immediately? Sorry, I've not really dealt with DCFS yet. At least not in this type of situation. I've had to assist with getting kids out of a neglected household and a few runaways, but I've only been on the force about 2 years. No problem. Those are all very common questions. Yes, he'll hang out with me until I can place him somewhere. If I can't find somebody today, he and I will camp out at my office until I can. He's my responsibility until I can place him in a home. Usually the little ones are easier to place in foster care. Foster parents have reservations about taking in preteens and teenagers. Why is that? Troy interrupts. Well, the common excuse is that they must be a problem if they're in the system at that age. They assume these are all children who came into the system young and have been placed, then returned because they were trouble or difficult to parent. Or they think they might not have been raised well to begin with, and they don't want to have to teach them how to behave that late in life. While those can be the case for a few of them, many of them were taken from their families recently and haven't even had a chance to prove they're good kids because no one wants to take them in. As for how long will it take, I can't give you an exact time frame. I have a few families in mind. I can tell you with him being 7, it should be less than a teenager, but more than a baby or toddler. I try to get them in a home within the first 4 hours. My office is certainly not a den of entertainment for children. The fact that he won't or can't speak may cause that time frame to be longer. Luke looks at Troy. Luke, are you hearing this? If you have the ability to talk to us, it will really help you. Luke shakes his head. I can't talk to these people. They can't know. Are you saying you can't talk or you won't? Luke just puts his head down and sighs. Troy matches his sigh and turns his attention back to Sophia. Well, we'll begin looking for a foster home immediately. When or if his parents come forward, we'll evaluate them. We won't just send him home with them before we determine if they're capable of taking care of him. Your office will assist in determining if his scars were a result of something the parents did. I promise, Officer Hebert, he's in good hands. Troy, he interjects. Call me Troy. There's no need for all the formality. Of course, Troy. I promise I'll take good care of him. I'll do everything in my power to find him a loving home, whether that's with his biological family or not. All right, Luke. I guess it's time. Miss Jenkins is going to find you a home with a real bed. There may be even other kids that you can play with and make some friends. I'll keep track of you. I promised you a day of fishing, and I don't go back on my promises. I bet they'll even have a pair of shoes for you. He looks to Sophia. Sorry, there were no stores open to get him any. The socks are mine. Not that I care about getting them back or anything, just explaining why they're so big. My grandmother gave him an old sweatshirt of mine to wear, too. Sophia nods. That's fine. We can find him socks that fit and a decent pair of shoes. Some of the foster homes may have spare clothes. If not, I'm sure I'll be able to get him something. Maybe the dollar store will be open today. They have a small selection of shoes and clothes. Luke stares at Troy. Troy stares back. He really hates to see the kid go. Troy can see his lips starting to quiver. It's only day 2 of being with him, and already they've both formed an attachment to each other. Sophia notices the looks they exchange. How sweet is that, she thinks. He seems to really care about the boy. From her purse, she takes a business card and hands it to Troy. Here's my card. Please contact me if his parents are found or if you just want to get an update on him. Troy pulls his attention away from Luke for just a second to take the card and put it in his pocket. He knows this is the right thing to do. Really, there's no other choice. This is the legal way to handle the situation. He just prays that whoever they find to take Luke will be good for him. People who will love him and treat him well, not people that will let anything like those scars happen to him ever again. With Luke and Troy still staring at each other, Sophia stands and reaches out her hand to Luke. Luke looks at her hand, and then with another glance at Troy and a confirming nod from him, he takes Sophia's hand. Troy watches as they walk out the door to the community room. He sits down and puts his face in his hands. Sighing, he thinks about the meeting that just took place. Sophia seems like a caring person. You must be to go into that line of work, right? She's quite attractive with that jet black hair and her green eyes. Again, he thinks back to his dream. Could he possibly have had a premonition? 2 of the children appeared to be young, but the one trying to help him was a teenager for sure. Stop, he tells himself. It was a dream. nothing more.